So you will start, right? So introducing me and then we continue, or what the procedure?
Well, no, it's okay. So
Okay.
you have everything ready and actually it's time. So I think it's start and people should be there as well. Okay. I suppose you're welcome to start, not to waste time.
Okay. Yeah. Fine then. Just a moment.
You can see that recording is working. I'm watching
Okay.
everything. People
And
know where to
you can
ask questions in the chat. So
good. And you can see my slides, right? So
yes, I can see
okay.
and
Very well.
everyone can.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. So apologies if you actually wanted to attend another workshop and you stuck to this one, but you know, this is life. So hopefully you're not going to be disappointed. I'll probably say a couple of words what I'm going to be speaking about. So if you decide that it's completely irrelevant, you can just go and enjoy a nice cup of coffee. There will be a difference comparing to what I'm going to say and what you've probably heard before, because I'm planning to be much less practical. And I would like more maybe to speak about a possible angle or a possible point of view when we are thinking about text in the classroom. And another important moment, so this presentation, as I actually wrote to the abstract, I think is going to be more relevant to those of you who actually teach learners at the level B1+. So it's not really about younger learners or beginners. And what I would like to be speaking about is actually texts in a general sense, meaning visual text as well, and listening as a text, and how much our learners actually learn from the texts they come across. So that's briefly for you to decide to what extent it is relevant. And although it says a workshop in the program, it's going to be more of a talk rather than a workshop. So again, sorry for that, but okay, that's how it's going to be. Just a couple of technical things, which I'm sure all of you know, but still it's always a useful thing to repeat. So make sure that your cameras and mics are off. Please use the chat for questions and comments as you've been doing during the previous sessions. And I think we'll have enough time to come back to them in the end of the session and discuss these things. And if you feel that there is something wrong with your connection, I mean, the quality is not good enough, try closing down unnecessary windows. So these things usually happen. Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, maybe a couple of words about myself. I used to be a teacher of English, so I actually taught for over 13 years at the secondary level and about 8 years at the tertiary level. And in fact, I used to be a LATA board member quite some time ago. What I do now is more related to teacher professional development and educational consultancy with international organizations like UNICEF and World Bank. But my main interest is and has always been the development of thinking skills in the learning process. And together with the colleagues, as some of you I'm sure know, we've been developing the approach, which we call the thinking approach to language teaching and learning. And what I'm going to be discussing now related to text is actually the latest ideas in terms of work with text within the approach. You have a link to the website on each slide, so you can actually go to the website of the company I represent, and from there you can always find all different resources we actually maintain, and occasionally I'll refer to one or the other. So that's about myself, and what I would like to start with is actually some background, not in language teaching, but even wider, background in education. And I think that one of the things that's happening in education nowadays is a change in understanding what our subjects are about. And that's actually going through, in my opinion, most of the disciplines in quite a few countries around the world. And for example, more and more people realize that mathematics, for example, is not about counting and is not about doing mathematical operations. History is not about historical knowledge, it's not about knowing when something happened. It's actually about something else. We will not go into details regarding these subjects, but what I'm really interested in, and I think that will be a good way for us to get to know ourselves as a group a little bit better, is to reflect on what English is not about, according to you. And what I would like to invite you to do is actually to use also one of those multiple resources which currently exist for an exchange of opinions, so that the website called Menti. So I'm inviting you to go to the website called menti.com, and you can either do it in another tab if you're watching this from the computer, or you can use your phone and actually open it on your phone, doesn't really matter. And answer this question. And there will be a couple of other questions later on in the presentation. And when you open, you will see something, something like this on the screen. And I think if you try to do it and if you start answering, we should see our answers now all together on the screen. So what English is not about, according to you, try to write a word or a combination of words, so keeping it fairly brief. Yeah, so just a few minutes for you to reflect and share your thoughts, if you could. Okay, did you? Okay, very well. So the answers are coming. So pay attention, what English is not about. Yes, okay, not about cramming new words, not about teaching language as such, not about drilling grammar, very well. Okay, it is not grammar. Good. So there are 26 of us here, so far 5 of us have answered, so it would be nice if a few more people shared what you think. Okay, so it's not about vocabulary, it's not about grammar. It's not about pleasure, or it is about pleasure. Okay. All right. Thank you. 7 people, 9 people. If you feel like sharing several answers, there is such an opportunity as well. You can submit another answer if you feel like doing it. Okay, so these are you can continue answering. So these are more or less our ideas regarding what English is not about. And in fact, there is one more question I would like you to answer now. And this is about you, your learners, and the texts which you ask your learners to read or not to read. So, so what kind of texts do you ask your learners to read? So do you ask them to read texts that are not in the course book? Do you ask them to watch videos from YouTube or other platforms? Do you invite them to watch films or series? So after you've submitted the answer to the first question, so you can just press next, and then you'll go to the next slide, and you can answer this question as well. So because we're going to be speaking about text with you, I think it will be useful for us to have a picture of what we do as teachers, so what kind of text we find meaningful for our learners and what kind of text we invite them to to actually read or watch or listen to. Okay, thank you to those 5 colleagues who have responded. Okay, very well. So far it seems like we have more or less of everything. So we do invite them to read the texts which are not in the course book. So we do invite them to watch videos. Okay, I'll give you maybe another minute to submit your response. Okay, YouTube seems to be the winner so far. Okay, so this was meant just more as getting to know each other so that we understand who is here, what kind of views we keep to. And I will go back now to my slides. Perhaps say a couple of words why I think it is important to think about texts and why I would like to invite you to think about texts. In my opinion, although the course books keep developing and there are many nice course books, when we look actually at the quality of texts in the classroom, in terms of content, I'm not speaking about the language now, I'm speaking about content because we read or we watch actually for content primarily in real life. I think many texts are unfortunately empty. There is not much to learn from them apart from certain linguistic or language points. On the other hand, there are plenty of rich texts around and they're fairly easy to find. We all know there are different platforms like TED and there are different wonderful websites where we can find texts. But somehow, because very often tasks to them are not available, we don't bring them to the classroom. And another thing, which I'm sure you know, our learners, especially if we have larger groups, they actually have different interests. It's fairly difficult to have a text everybody in your group enjoys. So someone prefers one type of text, someone else prefers a different type of text. So these are kind of, entry points for most teachers, in my opinion. And if we as teachers find them relevant, I think it would be interesting to think about how to address them. And that was actually a starting point for me. Also an important thing, so in my vision, and I'm not alone here, so communication, and we speak about the development of communicative competence in the classroom. Communication can be defined as an exchange of texts, is to what extent we can perceive texts in terms of learning from them, and to what extent we can create meaningful texts. So if we look at communication like this, then what we do with text in the classroom becomes actually even more important. So this was a kind of starting point for me, something which I really wanted to think about. And that's how these ideas I'm going to share came about. So let's try text. Just to make it easier for all of us and not to invite you to read something, I'm going to invite you to watch a video. It's a fairly short video, and then to reflect what it is about. So hopefully the quality will be fine for you. So those of you who are watching this as a recording, if you feel that the quality of the recording is not good enough, you can always just watch it straight from YouTube. But let's try.
Visualization is right at the heart of my own work too. I teach global health. And I know having the data is not enough. I have to show it in ways people both enjoy and understand. Now, I'm going to try something I've never done before. animating the data in real space, with a bit of technical assistance from the crew.
So, here we go. First, an axis for health, life expectancy, from 25 years to 75 years. And down here, an axis for wealth, income per person, $400, $4,000, and $40,000. So down here is poor and sick, and up here is rich and healthy. Now, I'm going to show you the world 200 years ago, in 1810. Here come all the countries. Europe brown, Asia red, Middle East green, Africa south of Sahara blue, and the Americas yellow. And the size of the country bubbles show the size of the population. And in 1810, it was pretty crowded down there, wasn't it? All countries were sick and poor. Life expectancy were below 40 in all countries. And only UK and the Netherlands were slightly better off, but not much. And now, why start the world? The Industrial Revolution makes countries in Europe and elsewhere move away from the rest. But the colonized countries in Asia and Africa, they are stuck down there. And eventually, the Western countries get healthier and healthier. And now we slow down to show the impact of the First World War and the Spanish flu epidemic. What a catastrophe! And now I speed up through the 1920s and the 1930s. And in spite of the Great Depression, Western countries forge on towards greater wealth and health. Japan and some others try to follow, but most countries stay down here. Now, after the tragedies of the Second World War, we stop a bit to look at the world in 1948. 1948 was a great year. The war was over, Sweden topped the medal table at the Winter Olympics, and I was born. But the differences between the countries of the world was wider than ever. United States was in the front, Japan was catching up. Brazil was way behind, Iran was getting a little richer from oil, but still had short lives. And the Asian giants, China, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh and Indonesia, they were still poor and sick down here. But look what is about to happen. Here we go again. In my lifetime, former colonies gained independence, and then finally they started to get healthier and healthier and healthier. And in the 1970s, then countries in Asia and Latin America started to catch up with the Western countries. They became the emerging economies. Some in Africa follows. Some Africans were stuck in civil war and others hit by HIV. And now we can see the world today in the most up-to-date statistics. Most people today live in the middle, but there are huge differences at the same time between the best of countries and the worst of countries. And there are also huge inequalities within countries. These bubbles show country averages, but I can split them. Take China, I can split it into provinces. There goes Shanghai. It has the same wealth and health as Italy today. And there is the poor inland province Guizhou. It is like Pakistan. And if I split it further, the rural parts are like Ghana in Africa.
And yet, despite the enormous disparities today, we have seen 200 years of remarkable progress. That huge historical gap between the West and the rest is now closing. We have become an entirely new converging world. And I see a clear trend into the future. With aid, trade, green technology and peace, it's fully possible that everyone can make it to the healthy, wealthy corner.
Well, what you have seen in the last few minutes is a story of 200
Let us stop here. And the question which I would like to ask you is actually what this text is about. And again, I would like to answer this question by going to menti.com again, or you can just continue to the next slide if you kept it open. I saw that some of you answered in the chat, but if you could answer not in the chat, but actually answer on the Menti website rather than in the chat, so that we could see a picture of how all of us answer in a visual way. So if you just open menti.com, as you can see on the screen, and type the code, you'll get to the slide, which I'm sharing. So it's a multiple choice now. So I give you 5 possible understandings or interpretations of the meaning of this text. And I would like you to agree or disagree, to what extent you agree or disagree with any of them. So if you could respond, that would be very very useful, I think, for us. Just a few minutes for you to try to do it. Okay, thank you. So 5 of us have answered, very well, 6. Let's try to reach at least 10 people so that we see how we interpret this text. Okay, so we have 10 people, even 11. What I would like to draw your attention to, and I think this is very important, our number is more or less comparable with the number of a large group we teach. And you can see that one and the same text, people interpret in a different way. So we see different things in the text. And I think this is very important. So when we see different things in the text, we should have a different starting point when we actually work with the text. And the approach which I would like to share with you is actually allows for these different ways of working with the text. And I find it important. Okay, if we go back to the slides now and continue. Okay, this we've done with you. If we were in the classroom now, together with you, so the next task I would ask you to do would be to join in pairs or groups based on your understanding, based on your answer. For example, if you agree that the text is more about an unusual point of view, you would be talking to those peers who have a similar view. If you see problems in the text, you again will be talking to a different group of peers. And you actually share what, as I call it, read into the text. So what you can actually see in this text, because in my experience, it is different. And that's the starting point. So actually the task which I ask you to do, we're not going to do now this specific task, but these 2 tasks is actually a starting point in the classroom. This is something I would ask my learners to do if I was working with them. And after that, basically, we arrive at the situation, and this is the summary of a kind of, as I call it, initial response to text, of what can actually be happening. So when we read a text or watch a video or listen to something, so first we respond individually regarding what we see in this text, like I asked you to, and then we join in groups or pairs, if we have a small group, and discuss it with our peers. And I've been thinking about it for quite some time, and we've been trying to work with different texts, with different learners. So far, we say that there can be 5 groups of interpretations of what people see in the text. And these can be problems, solutions, something which is now fashionable to call a mental model. A mental model is basically a way of looking at things. For example, in this particular text, you can say that Hans Rosling invites us to look at the level of income and at the life expectancy when comparing countries. And there are different mental models. Some people compare countries culturally, and there is no culture here. So some people compare countries geographically, and there is no geography here. So it's a different mental model, a different way of looking at things. An unusual point of view or an unusual finding, and this is something some of you actually saw in this text. And what I'm trying to say, that doesn't matter what our learners see in the text. So depending on what they notice, we should give them an opportunity to work with this. And then they're divided into groups, and there can be several, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe even 5 groups in class. And each group is given a set of tasks to basically investigate maybe problems, maybe mental models, maybe an unusual point of view. And I'm going to show you how these tasks might look like. Then groups make presentations, and they can decide what kind of presentation they make. It can be oral or digital or paper-based. It doesn't really matter. And the most interesting thing, they actually define further objectives. They decide what they might be interested to do further on. The most interesting thing about this approach, that it does not depend on a text. That means that irrespective of what kind of text you bring to your learners, for example, you have your favorite videos, which you believe are very meaningful, or they have the texts or videos which they find meaningful, you can still use these tasks. So they are text independent. Now, what kind of tasks might these be? I'll just choose one possible interpretation connected with problems and show you how tasks might look like and what might actually be happening within groups. So again, you can see tasks can be individual, or they can be group or paired. And everything starts normally with rereading or rewatching. So as a teacher, I always found it very useful, and I still believe it's a very good way to do things. So for example, if my learners say that they notice problems, or if they say they notice mental models or unusual point of view, I would invite them to watch this video again and mark specifically those moments where an unusual point of view is presented, or a problem is presented, or a solution is presented. And the next step would be to describe it in your own words, not just to say what Hans Rosling is saying in this video, but to do it in your own words. And then you can select, if we speak about problems, those that seem more relevant to you. Because Hans Rosling might be speaking about a large number of problems. For example, I, as a reader of these texts, might be saying that one of the problems Hans Rosling is discussing is that people have a distorted view of the world, and that people interpret the world not in a fact-based fashion. And this may be an interesting problem for me as a reader to investigate, but for some of you as readers, it's not the problem you would like to investigate. Maybe you are more curious about data representation, and you were fascinated by the way Hans Rosling showed you statistical data via bubbles. And this is an interesting solution, and you can actually investigate the problem of how to make statistical data clear to people. And that would be a completely different path of thinking about this text. And then you come together as a group and you discuss it with your peers, and you decide if you can agree on common problems. And in the end, you would go back, if you remember, and present the outcome to other groups. So there will be presentation to other groups. So there would be a sequence of steps a small group or a pair of students is making, and then they go back and they share. And then, as I said, the most interesting thing is to define objective for your further work. So for example, like I said, if I chose a problem I would like to investigate about helping people see the world in a more fact-based fashion, maybe I want to learn more about how this problem is resolved in our world. So what has been done So apart from what Hans Rosling has shared in this text, what else exists? And then there is the next step to a research project. So this is, as you can see on the slide, is initial response to the text. So what happens later on is we actually reflect and decide what we want to do further on. For example, am I happy with the way the problems are defined? Am I familiar with the existing solutions to these problems? Am I aware of new problems that appear? So these questions help me as a learner decide what I want to do further on. And this further on is organized according to what we call stages of competence development. So, because when we plan learning, we need to plan learning according to how people learn. And here we see a text as a springboard for research. So to me and to my colleagues, so in order to learn something from the text, in order to make the text meaningful, we need to do some mini research related to this text. And so further steps in these activities with the text are meant to help our learners actually to start this research and to conduct this research. And those of you who've been following the development of the thinking approach, you might know that we've been doing things like this with grammar for a very long time. And we have a website which is called tagrammar.eu, where we share how research of learners can be organized when we do grammar. So you can go and see, and it works, and it is fairly easy. We know how to do it. What we didn't know till recently is how to organize research in a technological way, in a step-by-step fashion, when we deal with texts. And what I'm sharing with you today is actually an attempt to move in that direction. So that's an approach that shows how we could do it. Now, what basically happens, how it looks like when we speak about texts. So in the beginning, and this is something which I invited you to do, we actually ask ourselves, do I like this text? Do I see problems in this text? Is there anything for me to learn? And it might happen that I actually read the text and I see nothing there. So it's not interesting. I don't respond. Maybe some of you actually watched Hans Rosling's presentation and you said, okay, and so what? So you didn't actually respond. You didn't find anything anything there for you. And in my opinion, in this case, this is not the text to work with if we speak about our learners. We need to take the text we can actually learn something from. And then we make the next steps and start asking ourselves, so whose problems are these? What do these people want to achieve? So why can't they? Like I said, so if this is the problem of helping people see the world in a fact-based way rather than according to their stereotypes, where people still divide the world into developing countries and to developed countries, then what can we do? According to Hans Rosling, the world stopped being divided into developed and developing about 40 years ago. Modern world is not like this. And he usually gives statistical data to support this. But I, as a reader, may agree or disagree, and then this would be the step for further investigation. So what I want to learn. And further on, so at each step, there is something which I do as a learner as part of my, my research project. I know that it's been just a very brief introduction. So my idea, I must be honest, was just to give you the taste of it, to show, as I said, a possible point of view. And then it is for you to decide if it actually looks attractive. Because if it looks attractive, then probably you want to learn more and to make the next step. If it doesn't look attractive, then you'll happily forget about what I've been sharing over the past 30 minutes. So let me speak about those next steps if you do find it interesting. So how can it be relevant to you as a teacher and what you can do? So the first thing you can do, if you go to one of the websites we maintain, and this is thinkingapproach.org, and this is the website we've been supporting for over 20 years already, you have a bank of texts there. So like the text by Rosling I shared with you. These are mostly written texts, so paper-based, but online. We have over 200 different texts for different groups of learners. So probably you could just go there and see if there are any texts you find interesting and you'd like to bring to your learners and see if they find them meaningful. If you like it, if you find it interesting, the next step which you could choose is to decide if you'd like to experiment with any of your groups. I wouldn't recommend experimenting with everyone, but maybe choosing one group of learners and trying to do something along these lines. And I'm very much interested in a group of colleagues who would like to experiment. So on my part, I'm going to offer free support throughout the school year to all those of you who actually decide to experiment with your learners with this proposed approach and share how it's been going on. So you can just send me an email and let me know about yourself, and we'll be in touch. So these are possible things which you can do as a teacher. To help you decide if it is really for you, because I do have some experience working with teachers, and I've been doing professional development for nearly 20 years already. So there are some things which I find common about most of colleagues we've been working with over the years. First, people who usually stay are those who are not satisfied with the way things are. If you're completely happy with the way you teach and with the way your learners learn, probably there is no need for you to change something. Things are fine as they are. If you're not happy with how much they learn, or you're not happy with certain aspects of teaching, this might be something for you to consider. Another important thing, you should not be afraid of uncertainty. Because as long as we start bringing this meaningful new text into the classroom, there will be lots of controversial points. With due respect to course books, but international course books avoid controversial points. So when we do bring controversial questions to the classroom, things are much less certain. You should love challenges and actually enjoy challenges of different sorts, obviously love learning. And for this particular aspect I'm speaking about now, you should be teaching learners at the level of B1+, because this approach is mainly for this basically level. So if you find it relevant, do join, so do learn more, and it will be a pleasure. Like I said, I'm happy to answer questions. I think we still have a few minutes to do this. A little bonus to all of you who are here, who are watching the recording. Next week, basically, next Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we are running our international conference of thinking, some of you might know about. You have the address again here. So if you decide you would like to learn more about different approaches to developing thinking skills, you can look up the program, and there is a special bonus for you for joining the conference, and the address where you can register and ask questions. Okay, and like I said, if you find it interesting, if you'd like to learn more about the approach, if you're ready to experiment with your colleagues, please do get in touch and send an email to me. Okay, so if you could post your questions to chat, so I can try to answer a few. We do have a few minutes, Nora, don't we?
Yes, 3.5 as I see, because the system will go back automatically.
Yeah. Okay. So we can probably
Mm-hmm.
try. I can try to answer questions till we are all brought back to the main room. There is one question. I already see about the mental models. Okay, you can Google mental models and you'll see quite a few references. But I'll share my understanding with you. So mental models are basically useful frameworks or useful lenses through which you can look at the world. So something that helps you look at the world and see certain things better. For example, just to give you an example related to something all of us have been undergoing, when we speak about any epidemic situation like COVID-19, a very useful mental model coming from math is the model of doubling. So that's extrapolated growth. So people need to understand how things grow. And if you understand how things grow, you realize the need for all those restrictive measures that many countries actually introduced. So yes. Any other questions? So that's probably a signal for us that the session is about to enter and will be brought back to the main room. So I'll be looking forward to emails from those of you who are interested, and I'll be happy to share more about this approach. So thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Alexander, for a great presentation. Yeah, I completely agree. Very often we don't use text because they are not together with some exercises, but very often as well, these texts would be better than some given in books. So thank you very much again for your presentation.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
And please, listeners, okay, still 1 minute to ask the last questions. And
Okay,
then
I'll press the video link. Yes, I'll put the video link into the chat.
Oh,
Just
thank you.
give me a
Yeah,
second.
there was a question about that as well.
Yes, I'll do that now. But you can easily, there are actually quite a few good things, good presentations by Hans Rosling. So if you like this one, I actually recommend. You can find him. He was a very very well-known TED speaker. You can find quite a few of his presentations at TED.com. And he actually started the NGO, which is called Gapminder. And if you go and type Gapminder, so you'll get to a page where you find many fascinating things which you can also use in the classroom. So I do recommend. The link is now in the chat. If there are any other questions, please feel free to. In fact, if you have some comments or you know, disagreements, so you're also welcome. So that would be interesting. So we can look at our answers also, what English is not about. See, actually, most of us agree that English is not about grammar, so because this word is bigger, so that's interesting.
So excuse me, the system is going to break off in a moment, literally.
Yeah, that's fine, yes.
Hello, guys. Do you need some more time or you have finished?
No, we are done. We're fine, actually.
Okay, okay, good. I'm going to check on other rooms.
Okay, just a summary for you regarding your answers. So Menti, by the way, is also a platform which you can use with learners. So that works pretty well, and you can use it for different things. Also those which some other colleagues have been discussing, like formative feedback or things like that. But there are many resources which are like this. I'll probably show you as long as we're still here.
I'm sorry. So now you have to press leave breakout room, yes?
Okay.
So sorry, Alexander, this is so.
That's
Thank
okay,
you
no
very much
problem.
again.
No, that's fine, yeah.
If that's us ready.